Happy Monday. Yes, this is OverDrive on TSN 1050. You're watching on TSN 2, but this is not OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog. They are off for Family Day, so you got me, Brendan Dunlop, alongside Dave Feschuk. But since, my first wheel, a spin of OverDrive was with you, my friend, I feel like your TSN family, this is fitting we're together today on Monday.
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too, man.
On the worst holiday ever invented. Like what? They wanted to give us another holiday. I think it was Dalton McGuinty, right? The premier of the province at the time. And they said, let's make it in the middle of February. Like, I still don't get that one.
Don't you think you need a break? Don't you think most people, you're coming off the highs of Christmas and you go straight into the bad weather in January? And then March break is a long ways away.
I want to grind through the winter. I want all my holidays in the nice weather.
Okay.
All right, give me another June holiday. Is there even a June holiday? I don't know. But I don't think there is. Give me Solstice Day on June 21st.
You want to stack them up.
Yeah.
But you know what that feels like to me? The people who have like December birthdays that are close to Christmas, they must feel like there's not enough time in the year. It's not spaced out.
Yeah.
If you took Family Day and you put it in June,
right.
If you load it up, I think you're like those December people. Like I feel it'd be better to have a space out. My birthday is October 28th. The problem with that is it's Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
So my whole life, people, like every party was a costume party.
Right.
Part of the reason I have a very love-hate relationship with Halloween as a holiday.
More hate. I'm sensing more hate.
Yeah. I mean, once I was of legal drinking age, I started to enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah.
But my point being, can't stack them all like that.
Anyway, my thing is just like, I want to grind through the winter, save up my holidays for the nice weather. And I just don't understand why anybody would think it was a good idea to give us a holiday in the middle of February.
Look,
that's just me.
We're coming off of a holiday break for a lot of NBA players. Everyone who wasn't involved in the All-Star Weekend goes away somewhere nice. A lot of Cancun, Cabo, maybe a few Dubai reservations. I feel like the players that were there treated it like a holiday because that game wasn't exactly a game with any competitive balance whatsoever. Not that you'd ever expect that from an All-Star game, but I mean, come on. Just look at the reception. There's a lot of people thinking, are we really going to roll this out next year and do this again? Like, this was the year you said it mattered to have a competitive game. And then we got the highest scoring, lowest defense game in NBA, in sport all-star history.
Yeah. People call it a glorified pickup game. There was no glory.
No.
Like, there was no glorification of anything. And there certainly was no defense. And, yeah, to score 211 points in a game, as the Eastern Conference did, I mean, they hit the over by what? They hit the over by only 41. The over was 356, and they hit it and the total was 397. I mean, think about that. I mean, there were basketball purists, let's just say, who were appalled. I don't get all worked up about this stuff because it's an all-star game. It's never going to be perfect, and it's rarely going to be great. Mm-hmm. But this took it to new levels of ridiculousness.
Yeah, agreed. And you think about like how much it mattered for Indiana, one of the smallest markets in the NBA. So much history, of course, and very much basketball country. That was celebrated. They were really proud about that. Reggie Miller, Larry Bird was out there, and we got Larry Bird before the game talking about how how much it matters that they go out and show how competitive they can be and put on an entertaining show, but show that this game matters.
Yeah, there was nothing like that.
Nothing like that.
Like there was. Yeah, you talk about the old school kind of mentality. Look, there have been moments in somewhat recent memory where the games have been competitive.
Yeah.
Now, not the whole game, but generally it's the unwritten rule used to be, and I don't know what happened to it. Somebody, I guess because it was unwritten, someone just forgot it. The unwritten rule was, you play the first three quarters, you fool around, you showboat, you throw balls off the backboard, you alley-oop, you shoot up, 40-footers if you so choose. And then in the fourth quarter, if the game's close, you actually compete and maybe try and stop somebody and maybe block a shot or, send somebody, steal a ball and get a breakaway dunk. There was nobody turned up the heat a notch in the fourth quarter. Now, partly that was because the East was way ahead and it was kind of a lost cause for the West, but the old West, because there were a lot of old guys in the West, and I think it was kind of an age thing in some ways, especially obviously LeBron, not really interested in competing because he's coming off the sprained ankle, but yeah, it's just whatever happened to the unwritten rule of let's just make it a one-quarter game. They made it a no-quarter game.
Yeah, or, take one shot from half court to show that you've got some ranges of skill. Don't do it all night. Don't make it your MO to winning the NBA All-Star Game MVP. Have some balance to the game.
But I'll say this: look, there was still some fun stuff. I mean, the best competition of the All-Star Weekend was not the All-Star Game; it was Steph versus Sabrina, which was spectacular to me. I mean, it was way better than I thought it was going to be. And for Sabrina to push Steph the way she did was incredible. I mean, Steph was nervous.
Yeah.
And Steph ended up having to make, he had to make one of those last two.
They both
and he made them both.
They both expressed that, and they recognize what it means, and also the time that we are as a society right now. It was very cool to see that spectacle be as competitive as entertaining, and it makes you wonder what they'll come up with next. But from the game perspective, which is still the most important part of this, right? It's great that they've made it a four-day party, and if you're participating in that, I think a lot of people that will return from Indiana today will have much more positive feelings than any of us that stayed at home and watched that game on Sunday night. But if you're one of the old heads, if you're Larry Bird, who really wanted this to be a spectacle that you could be proud of to have in Indiana, to get that game, he's got to be pretty sad with what he saw, because this is what he said before the All-Star game yesterday.
The one thing I would really like to see is they play hard tonight in this All-Star game. I think it's very important when you have the best players in the world together. You got to compete, and you got to play hard, and you got to show the fans how good they really are.
Obviously, Larry Bird was making those comments in a room where none of the players participating in the game could hear that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that all of those players would disrespect Larry Bird, one of the greats, that way. But honestly, it just makes you wonder if you need a format change or what that would even do. I think for the longest time, the NHL was criticized for tinkering with the All-Star game repeatedly. I think they've had a couple that worked, but they would change it rather fast. And how many format changes have we seen, in the NBA? When they switched to the captains picking the teams, I thought that was good. It got a little stale. I like that they went back to East-West. We've seen the NHL change a lot too, but the NBA needs to make a change. Otherwise, it's just a joke.
Well, yeah, and the problem is, how do you get guys to care? How do you get guys to actually compete in the load management era when everybody's out there probably with some instructions from their team? Hey, like LeBron, you're nursing that ankle. Don't go too hard on it. Hey, don't do too much. Tell the coach you're nursing this and you don't want to play too much. There's a lot of that going on. But look, I mean, it is sad when you think about, they showed that great piece before the game in which Wayne Embry, the senior advisor to the Raptors, figured prominently about the 1964 All-Star game and the impact that had on the league, where the star players at the time decided, they were going to threaten to strike and not play the game unless they would get a pension approved by the NBA owners before the game. And of course, the legends like Jerry West and Oscar Robertson and Mr. Embry, the great elder statesman of the game who is connected to the Raptors, and they're fortunate to have him. They talked about how much it meant that, A, they needed to play the game because at the time they got money for it, and most of the guys were paycheck to paycheck, and they wanted the money. But B, they stood up on principle. Even though they really wanted the money, they didn't want to tick off the owners because some of them were worried if they weren't the stars of the stars that they might not play in the league again, because the owners were certainly threatening as much. But they stood up on principle. And what do you know? The owners caved at the last minute. They ended up getting the pension. And now, eons later, 50-plus years later, the league is what it is, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry where the pensions don't even seem to matter anymore because the guys make so much money they might not even notice they're getting a pension. But it's amazing how it evolves from this game means everything to me. I got in one generation to the 80s and 90s. Yeah, it still meant something, to now where the money is just ballooned into the stratosphere. It's hard to get guys to care.
It becomes one of those things that we're just still doing because we've always been doing it.
Yeah.
But it mattered in the 60s, and it mattered in the 70s and in the 80s when they were trying to grow the game and getting to a point where, and certainly at the college level, where you realize, wow, for March Madness, we can fill football stadiums. There's a level of growth that the sport really needed, and we saw under David Stern in the 90s, to get to this point where it was unmissable, right? Where was must-watch TV, maybe not every night, but at least a lot. The NBA's been that for a couple of decades now. And with social media, with the way the sport is being consumed, the All-Star game just doesn't have the same impact. And the exposure, like having the big stage, the NBA doesn't need the same way it used to. So I think that they got to rethink that. I'm very interested to get Jack Armstrong's take. We'll talk to him at 4:30. But you mentioned LeBron, his 20th All-Star game, which is incredible. At the same time, just feels normal. Like if you had told me in 2005 he'd still be playing in his 20th All-Star game in 2024, I think I would feel like, oh yeah, he won't be 40 yet, so yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, of course he would be. Like it just felt like he should be there. But he played the company line post game and tried to hint like, yeah, it'd be nicer if it was a little tighter, but I really enjoyed it. Just happy to be here and everything. Even though they have 16 points, those guys, the West was stacked, but the stars you wanted to see weren't big factors in the game. Karl Anthony Towns had a very quiet 50, right?
Scored 50 in a blowout loss.
Shout out to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31 points.
Yeah.
He is going to be a regular and a perennial All-Star. But LeBron's first game in 2005, any idea what the total was?
Oh, man. I think I was probably there, but I don't remember the total. It would
240,
have to be,
man.
Yeah, I was going to say it had to be 100 points lower.
The East won 125 to 115.
Right.
That is now what we would call a low-scoring NBA score.
Yes.
Right?
It's like a halftime score.
Which is insane.
I mean,
also, the guys that he was playing with, Iverson, Vince, Shaq, Grant Hill, Ben Wallace, Paul Pierce, D-Wade. That's just the East that LeBron was playing with, man. The West, Kobe, Tim Duncan, Yao Ming, Tracy McGrady, Steve Nash, Dirk, Manu Ginobili. That is a game that you would feel was must watch.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Jalen Brunson. I'm actually a New York Knicks fan. But a lot of the guys that were out there on the court, throwing up from half court and, just treating it like a YMCA game, not even with the competitive level, it just didn't do it for me. I definitely got up and made a sandwich twice during that game.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, yeah. That's the thing. You say it's a YMCA game, but when you go to the YMCA, one of the problems with going to the YMCA, if you're an old guy like me, is guys compete too hard. You start going out there, there's guys that want to get in fights. There's guys that want to body up on you. There was none of that going on out there. There are pickup games in every city on this continent, I'm sure every other continent that loves basketball, that are more intense by a mile. It wasn't even close to being competitive. It wasn't... guys were going out of their way not to defend. And, Karl Anthony Towns is sprinting down the floor and just trying to get dunks to get his 50. It was a mockery of basketball. And that's the problem. You can understand why, look, if you're throwing it off the backboard trying to make a spectacular alley-oop and you're having fun and that's great. You're throwing behind the back stuff. You're doing all the showboating, globetrotter stuff. Fans enjoy that to a certain degree. But, if you're out there with your buddies playing pickup soccer and nobody's playing defense, at a certain point, don't you just say, let's just pack it in, fellas? It's not that much fun, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Great. You know your audience very well, man. Yeah, a great comparison. I've been there a lot. I'm also the guy that usually, I'm the one making mistakes, and people are like, yeah, that's it. I've played for 47 minutes. I got my sweat. I don't need to pass this guy the ball so he can kick it out of bounds and make a bad play with it. Yeah, we're good. We're done.
Yeah. So anyway, look, and the thing is, it's supposed to, you can say, well, what are you nitpicking about, right? They still had the dunk contest. Wasn't great, but that McClung kid's pretty good. Still had the three-point contest, and they still had Steph versus Sabrina, which was good. But it's supposed to mean something. They give these guys rings when they walk in, all-star rings. The honor is supposed to mean something. See, to me, it wouldn't be a huge imposition to just ask them to play a little basketball for maybe 12 of the 48 minutes.
It shouldn't be. Well, maybe they need to find a new way to do it. That's what we'll get into a little bit later. Doogie's got a way for us to get into some alternatives. I think we'll put a poll up on the OverDrive Twitter account.
It's a rare day where Gary Bettman can say, we got one over on the NBA. Our All-Star Weekend was better than theirs.
Honestly, you're not a fan of February holidays, but are you a fan of matinee hockey? Because I enjoyed the smorgasbord of NHL action that we had today.
I do like matinee sports. I'll give you that.
Matinee sports in general.
Yeah. And matinee Maple Leaf games, you don't get many of them, and that was a fun one to watch.
Yeah. If they were on the wrong end of it, though, would we still enjoy matinee games? I mean,
hey, man, it's something to talk about. And, hey, the way Matthews is playing right now,
oh, my God,
it's not just Leaf fans that want to watch this team. He's starting to get that buzz of you got to tune in every night just to see what happens, or every afternoon in this case, because it's getting spectacular.
And I think he was deserving of that for the last couple of seasons, but there's so much more intrigue with where the team is very much in must win now, off on that extension that people thought. I think people were mixed on the terms. Obviously, a lot of Leafs fans were hoping that he would commit longer for 8, but I mean, he's absolutely delivering. He's showing you that he's committed to winning now, which is what the team is saying and have said by some of their other expenditures, that's exactly what they want to do. And man, the fact that he's lighting the lamp like that, you don't bet against this guy hitting 70.
Well, I was just talking about it with a couple of my buddies on text about how, this guy's still fourth in the odds for Hart Trophy. Like, he's on pace to get 75 goals. In what universe is this guy not going to win the Hart Trophy if he gets 75 goals? Like, how can he be the fourth favorite right now?
Yeah.
Behind Kucherov, McKinnon, and McDavid. It's beyond me why anybody would think that's even remotely close to true.
Is it people just not watching the games? Like, are the Leafs actually a market that doesn't get the spotlight every night? Like, that can't be true.
No, that's not true at all. They get all the spotlight, and maybe that's part of the reason. I do think there is an argument to be made that all of their playoff failures stacked on all their playoff failure has
He's wearing that.
taken some of the significance away from anything they do in the regular season.
For sure.
Right? It's like it was like with Nikola Jokic last year, right?
Yeah.
Until he won and he and the Denver Nuggets won a championship, there was a lot of skepticism. Oh, well, we're giving him MVPs, but he can't win in the playoffs. And, there's something to that. Like, there is something to the fact that until you prove you can do it in the postseason, because we value the postseason so much more than we do anything else in our current North American sports structure. Until you do that, not doing it, I think, does take some credibility away from what you're doing in the regular season. But in this case, like, he's the definition of an MVP because he's leading the league in goals, obviously. He's leading the league in even strength goals, 5-on-5 goals. You know what he's not leading the league in? Garbage goals. Like, no, I'm serious. Like, he's got 0 empty netters.
Yeah.
Like, he's got 0 empty netters. He's only second in power play goals. Okay, so he's not like just racking up goals on a great power play, even though their power play is really great. They're second in the league now. And I was running the numbers with my pal Randy Robles from Elias Sports Bureau, and he kind of invented a stat called high impact goals. And it's just like, has to be a goal that either ties the game, takes the lead, or wins or takes the lead, or brings you within one. So it's like three, brings you within one, ties it, or gives you the lead. And Randy's like, this guy's on pace for the second best high impact goal season in the history of the league. Only Brett Hull's had more in his season. If he continues on this pace. And again today, another high impact goal. He scores the goal that makes it 2-1 for the Leafs. They end up winning 4-2. But it's a goal that matters, right? He's not scoring nothing goals. He's not getting, although I guess in the Anaheim game he got a couple. That was a rare blowout for them where he got a couple goals late when they were well ahead. But hasn't been happening very much. Like, every goal he's scoring from game 1 against Montreal, where he gets the hat trick and they needed every one of them to beat the Canadiens. Like, to me, that's what's significant about this is, okay, yeah, they still haven't done it they still haven't done it in the playoffs, and he can't do anything about that until the playoffs. But he's carrying this team, man. Yeah. He's carrying this team. And if he's not doing, they're now, 17-2-1 without Morgan Riley the last 2 seasons? Like, they've won 17 of the 20 games without their best defenseman. Like, without Matthews, man, they ain't doing that.
No. I mean, he's got 14 multi-goal games, for goodness sake.
Like, he is by far their most valuable player.
6 hat tricks, 44 goals in his last 31 games. That, to me, is what's more impressive.
Yeah.
It's all of the games that he's not scoring in. Like, yes, as you say, he's had quite a few multi-goal nights, but he's not scoring garbage goals. No. And if you were keeping that stat, for the longest time, the hockey community, both fans and those who worked in it, averse to any sabermetric-style collection of statistical data. But if you ran that back on Lemieux and Gretzky and those legendary goal scorers in the 80s and Trottier, go farther back, how many garbage goals are in there?
Well, that's what my friend Randy at Elias was doing. He was pointing out, like, Gretzky got a lot of garbage goals, and Lemieux got a lot of garbage goals. Now, it's not to say they weren't great. I'm not saying Matthews is greater than them. I'm not saying – we're just saying in this particular – like, if you look at a team that needs goals, like the Leafs need these goals. They're not blowing people out on a regular basis. Anaheim game, excluded. They're in a lot of tight games, and he's coming up with a lot of clutch goals that either bring him within one, tie it, or give him the lead. And he's just doing it again and again. Like, he just really hasn't stopped.
We'll talk Leafs a little bit later. Mark Masters is going to join us in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll talk with Josh Cloak from The Athletic at 6:30 as well. Obviously, I'll get into some soccer. Toronto FC opened the season. The MLS season starts this weekend. Mixed feelings in Toronto. Don't think there's too many people with optimism that the Italians or John Herdman will have the wondrous turnaround impact that the city really needs, that MLSE is hoping for. But we'll see.
Yeah,
Last
that's
season.
my 30,000-foot view of TFC is, wait a second, they had 2 malcontent Italians last year, and it was a disastrous year, and yet we started a new year, and they've still got the 2 malcontent Italians.
Yeah, in a market where the offseason is driven with, we've got money, who are we going to buy? This has not been one of those years. They've not brought in many faces whatsoever.
And they haven't got rid of the faces that some people wouldn't have been too sad to see go.
Exactly. And so that will leave us with a lot of talking points for sure. Chris Johnson also going to join us too. I love the Jaromir Jagr celebration this weekend.
That was great.
Like I think I expected it to be, honestly, I expected it to be what it was because of the personality that he is and how beloved he is by all the people around him, even if they would never want to be caught in that same situation. Like, how many times did you see Mario Lemieux and he's just like, oh, God. There was a couple moments. I think he really enjoyed it, but he's looking at like, I would never be you at the podium there. We are so different people.
Oh, yeah.
Love you like a brother. Always will. But, wow, we are different.
Yeah, we don't know much about Mario, right? Mario's very to himself.
Close to the vest, has been, yeah.
Jagr's never been afraid to tell the world what he thinks and who he is. And
I loved it. Skating with the team in warm-ups, everybody with the mullet, they're wearing the patch. Like, I really, really loved it. He
still hasn't retired. Still playing with the team he owns in the Czech Republic.
I know, in the second division, technically still a pro. That's why he can't go into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's still an active player.
Exactly.
He would have loved to have gotten a shift. I'm sure there was probably a conversation. Can you sign me to a one-day? Just give me a shift.
He could have gone out.
Just give me a shift. Or to have negotiated. Can we do this in preseason? Last game preseason. Give me a shift. Give me a period.
Yeah.
Who would turn it?
Well, he apparently went to practice, and he was very, said he did very well. So.
You talk about, well, of course, just ask him.
Yeah.
Talk about Matthews being like a must-watch guy, and if you're outside of this market in Toronto, like that's someone that you know and someone that you might go out of your way to watch. Like Jaromir Jagr was that forever.
Oh, yeah.
Even as a Ranger, and he bounced around. Maybe not when he got to Dallas and Calgary, or Florida, but he was just exceptional. A human highlight reel. And someone that you are always excited to see.
Well, yeah, the interesting career in a lot of ways because he starts out as sort of a phenom kid with a bit of a attitude problem, chip on his shoulder, bit of an aloof guy, mercurial guy, and then he ends up being this great veteran that is a mentor to dozens and dozens of teammates and famous for his work ethic and his midnight skates back at the rink and all the unconventional stuff he did, a la LeBron, to sort of extend his career beyond what anybody thought possible for him. Incredible work ethic, conditioning. You hear all those stories. I mean, I've heard a lot of guys talk about the Jaromir Jagr hockey school, which he didn't get paid for, but he ran essentially at practices with his younger teammates and just teaching them everything, right? Just teaching them how to be a hockey player.
Mm-hmm. Today's player at that level would find a way to monetize that, even within the team. Don't you think?
You're probably right.
Yeah.
He probably, I'm sure there's probably parts of him that think, wait a second, I left money on the table.
Exactly. Get some Instagram sponsor like, oh no, it's just for social content, and all of a sudden the team's paying for it.
Yeah. Hey man, that's probably the next wave, right? You can make money off your teammates. But yeah, he did it, and it's an amazing career, and it's amazing that the Penguins only have a couple numbers or 3 numbers retired, and he's the third, and good for him.
Mm-hmm. How excited are you that position players have reported at spring training?
I get excited about
since you're deep in the cold winter, just trying to slog through and get to springtime.
Hey man, there's a
part,
I always try and get down there at some point and see a few games because there's nothing to me like you talk about all-star games and meaningless games and training camps and preseason. Like as a fan, yeah, do I want to go to NBA preseason games? Not really. Do I want to go to NHL preseason games? No. Do I want to go to spring training games? Yeah, I do. Because the atmosphere is just fabulous, right? Like it's usually, doesn't even matter who's playing.
But what if you lived in like Phoenix or you lived in Dallas or somewhere, notice I'm picking nice weather places.
Yeah.
In San Diego. Do you think you'd feel the same way about it? Because I think that's the pull, right?
My life choices are probably to a point where I don't understand why I chose this climate, but here I am. So I can't even imagine life living in those places. So when I get down to those places, you're probably right. Like it wouldn't be that big a deal. But man, when you're in Florida or you're in Arizona and you get a chance to check out a couple of games in the nice weather, it's a pretty special feeling.
Let's get to this now because I don't know if we'll get into it. There's a lot of guys that have turned up on new teams. Justin Turner is one of them, signed with the Blue Jays. If you're not paying attention to their January 31st signings, I think that's one notable. And a surprise to me that he was 39, because I did not realize that he was older than me before signing with the Blue Jays. But there's quite a few guys still looking for jobs. And Justin Turner had some comments on where he thinks the game is going. The fact that you've got some high-profile, very deserving, well-deserving guys of new deals that are out here looking for a job.
It's just frustrating, I think. I think it's frustrating, obviously, for the guys in the free agency class. I think it's frustrating for, a lot of teams around the league trying to figure out, where some of these guys are going to go. And, it's kind of, a little bit of a black eye on baseball. You have all these guys that are, all-star, Cy Young, batting title, Rookie of the Year guys on the free agent market, and they're having a hard time finding a job. I don't think it's a good look. So
it is wild that Major League Baseball is like that, right? But this isn't new, especially when you're an older guy. You think about like Jose Bautista going into the offseason, just like hoping that someone in spring training will pick him up, and then the season starts, you're hoping someone gets an injury. Like in baseball, that's just kind of how careers end.
Yeah.
It's not new.
It's not new, but it's always surprising to the guys who are left holding the phone in their hand and it's not ringing, right?
Especially because, and no disrespect to Jose Bautista, but at that age, like you kind of just expected that time was going to come. But like, is Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, are these guys really done?
That's what I mean. Like it sounds to me like, it sounds to me like it's a bit of a Scott Boras problem, to be fair to Justin Turner, as much as it's a baseball problem. And look, Scott Boras has made a lot of money for a lot of clients, but, it does sound as though, over the years, especially in recent years, there's been a real aversion by many teams, and I'm not saying all the teams, but certainly many teams, to deal with Boras and to pay Boras's prices, right? And there's definitely a game of chicken going on, a stare down. And right now, it looks as though Boras isn't winning it in the case of Bellinger, and I'm not sure who else. But it's, that's, I think, when you ask a lot and you're not willing to come off the price, it's a bit like the NHL trade deadline right now. Like, it sounds as though the guys holding the pieces that everybody wants don't want to come down on price, and so people wait. Mm-hmm. I think it's the same thing going on in baseball.
There's a lot of money in baseball, but the way clubs want to spend it has definitely changed. We'll talk about all the money that was spent on the NBA All-Star Game, and if you feel like you got your money's worth watching it. Jack Armstrong going to join us next. This is OverDrive on TSN 1050 and TSN 2. Back on OverDrive on this Family Day Monday in Ontario and much of the country. My name is Brendan Dunlop. Happy to be filling in for Brian Hayes, and happy to be alongside Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. We both watched that NBA All-Star Game last night, and like you, probably wondered, what are we doing? What are we doing with our time? I can't wait to hear what Jack Armstrong thinks. A man who's watched so much basketball, a man who watched All-Star games when they really mattered, when players were fighting for something, and then a man like us had to watch that last night. Jack Armstrong, how are you, my friend?
Brendan, I'm doing good. You nailed it right there. I'm not sure what else I can say. It's nice chatting with you guys. Have a good night.
All right. Yeah. Do you want to talk about TFC? You want to talk about Toronto FC and the season starting then? It's one of those weird All-Star games, man, where the things that we're talking about, there might be some praise, but there's a lot of questions and a lot of nitpicking, correct?
Well, I've had the opportunity to be at a lot of All-Star weekends. The last few I haven't, but I've been at a lot of them. And, look, the positive is it's a celebration of the sport. You get the greatest players in one place, not only the current players, but the former players. And it really is a cool weekend from that perspective. Going into the game and expecting something really entertaining, you'll get entertaining, but will you get an incredibly hard-fought game? No, you're not going to get that. And that's exactly what it was last night. And, has it gotten completely out of hand? I would say, yeah. What are they going to do about it? I don't have an answer for it because I think the horse is out of the barn now. The players are 50% partners with the owners. But I think it's one of those relationships, sadly, that one partner has a lot of risk and the other partner thinks they have a lot of risk, which they do. But when it comes time to doing things for the fans and for the corporate clients and, for the TV partners, things like that, then, that agenda goes out the window. And to me, I think, if you're Adam Silver right now, you're staying there going, wait a minute, I got to negotiate a new TV deal. And now I got to go back to Turner and ESPN and people like that. And they're going to just throw this right in my face and say, this is ridiculous. We got guys on load management. We're doing nationally televised games and guys don't play. Our fans are upset. So it puts the league in a defensive position. And I think for the players, I totally understand from their perspective, you want to get through the game, have fun, and not get hurt. And that's the whole goal. But if we're going to see windmill dunks and incredible things that they're able to do, and why can't they do that in a dunk contest? I mean, with all due respect to Mac McClung, who's not even in the league, how can that guy be winning the dunk contest? If guys are willing to throw down some incredible dunks, in the dunk contest, why can't then they do that? Do that in an All-Star game. Why can't they do that then in the dunk contest?
Yeah.
Let's come up with other events for these guys to take part in and show their skills. But to me, it's a problem. Do I think it's ever going to come back to what it was? No, it's not. Because again, these guys are making so much money now, and in their minds, it's risk assessment time, and it's not worth their while. And even though they're 50% partners, and they're supposed to be pulling the rope along with the owners, they're partners to make sure it's good for the game and good for the business and everyone involved. I think it's a very self-centered approach right now.
Okay, Jack, so we all agree we can't fix the All-Star game. It's a lost cause. But there was a lot of chatter at the All-Star weekend, Jack, about the game in general, the NBA game, the NBA product. And, yeah, there was no defense in the All-Star game, but there's very tough to play defense in the real NBA game when the regular season resumes. And, there's talk about, Steve Kerr's talked about how they've legislated defense out of the game. We're seeing Luka Doncic has got, 10, 40-plus games. He's got a 73-point game. Embiid's got a 70-point game. You can't touch anybody. They send you to the free throw line for phantom fouls. Where are you on this? Do you think there needs to be an adjustment made where they got to get a little more defense back into the NBA game, or how do you see it?
I think they're going to have to do something to bring some level it a little bit. Yeah, the defense is in such an incredibly difficult predicament right now. I think, I don't know whether it's hand checking or allowing you to bump cutters a little bit, loosen up the rules in terms of defensive 3 seconds. But in some way, shape, or form, I think they're going to have to try to give the defense a degree of a chance to be successful. Because the way the rules are right now, hold on one second. There's going to be a lot of people. It's just.
You planning a party, Jack?
What's going on, Jack?
Sounds like you're planning a party. You making reservations?
I'm in Florida right now, so I'm the first one at the table. So I'm trying to hold the table here. So thank you.
How many, Jack? 30? How many? How many at the table with you? Leo's there. Leo's bringing people.
No,
there's good wine. What's going on? I'm joking.
Good.
I'm joking.
It's all good. No, it's one of those things right now that I think they absolutely have to do something to bring it back, because right now it's literally impossible to guard anybody.
Yeah.
And you look at football right now, it's hard to even breathe on a receiver, and you look at how the game's changed. So I think they got to do something to give the defense a little bit of a chance, a fighting chance to be successful. And to me, I think that's where it's at right now. Because if not, these guys are such great players. It's just incredibly difficult to stop them.
I think you should penalize guys for shooting from the logo. Okay, You get one, and if you take another attempt from half court, it's only worth 1 point. Right? That would be starters. That's how you would have fixed last night, I think. You would have forced them to get in the paint and get closer to their defender. That would have been it. But hey, Scottie Barnes was a real bright spot. That's not just Homer radio talking. Like he enjoyed it. He was good. Masai and Bobby Webster were there. What did you think of how he represented Toronto and the Raptors and himself at All-Star Weekend?
No, it was great for him. I'm happy for him. It was a good opportunity. Anytime you're exposed to players of that caliber, to be around them, I think it's an incredibly positive experience for his growth and his development. So, it's a good thing. And, we've seen that with other Raptor players who've had the opportunity. It's an eye-opening experience where they get a chance to really see what the other half does, how they operate, and more importantly, I think it sets a higher bar, a higher standard for him. And obviously what we've seen, what's happened in the last week with him and all the discussion, I think it's going to be really important for him to have that kind of focus now the last 27 games of the regular season. So I think it's a benefit to him that he experienced that this weekend. But look, I think when you look at the All-Star Weekend in general, I don't come into this at all, as kind of like a Frankie Kane waiver, like the old players were great and the new players aren't. I don't buy that whatsoever. I think these players are amazing. I just think that the way things are structured now, we're in an age of player empowerment, and things have changed dramatically. And I think the league has to adjust, and there has to be a little bit of, in my opinion, a little bit of pushback.
Hey, Jack, the Raptors will resume their season post-All-Star break on Thursday at home against your home borough Nets, the Brooklyn Nets. What did you make of Brooklyn firing Jacque Vaughn, their head coach, while they're sitting, a game and a half, 2.5 games out of the last play-in spot, and, not actually, 21-33 in a year where they're rebuilding?
Well, not only that, he got a contract extension less than a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So to me, it was kind of surprising, to be honest with you. And, currently, the way they're situated, I think they're a team that's kind of sitting right where they are. And is it the fault of the coach? Or is it, even though Sean Marks, I love him, he's a former Raptor, is it roster construction? I look at that roster right now. Obviously you traded for, you got stuck having to do something with the Harden situation. So you have a Ben Simmons, the guy barely plays. What are you going to do? I mean, what's a coach to do? So I think they're in a difficult spot, and I feel for him. I thought he did a really good job with their team a year ago after what took place with all the departures, and obviously I felt bad for what happened with Steve Nash. And now you look at what's happened here. At some point, is it always the coach's fault?
Yeah. No, it's a great point, Jack. It's spoken like a true coach, but exactly. I love that about you. So 27 games to go for the Raptors, Jack, and we know it's going to be a slog at times, but as you sort of look toward the stretch run here for this rebuilding team in Toronto, where are you drawing the bright spots? Where are you seeing the silver linings in the final 27 for the hometown Raptors?
Scottie Barnes, Grady Dick, seeing Emmanuel quickly really get to a level that you can look at him, because obviously you're going to negotiate a contract with him, to say that this guy is going to be your every night, every game, 35-minute point guard, and that can run your team, score, pass, defend. That's going to be big. That the system fits a guy like R.J. Barrett. Kelly Olynyk, I think, is hopefully maybe he's part of their future. And just trying to put the pieces together where, they become a good, solid, functional unit down the stretch. And they have a lot of positive moments together where you say, okay, now this is what it looks like. What are the moves you have to make in the off season to plug in and make a team that much more competitive next year where maybe you are contending for a playoff spot. So, hey, look, they're 5 games out of a play-in spot with 27 to play. That's not going to be easy. But nonetheless, to me, I think those are the things that you really want to see a lot of.
I'm with you there, Jack. I think there will be quite a few positive moments for Raptors fans in the second half of the season. But look, we know there's a lot of people coming to dinner for you. A lot of people you probably turned up already, so we appreciate them waiting while you talk to us on OverDrive. And Jack, we love chatting with you basketball anytime. So thanks for making the time before dinner, pal.
You got it, Brendan. Dave, all the best. Have a great night.
There you go. Jack Armstrong about to have some good eats, some good wine, and enjoying the nice sun in Florida. Man, you got a nice tan too. You just come back from a trip. I was away for a little bit, but I feel like I didn't get enough time in the sun.
Wait, you were in 2 desert locales.
Yeah, I was in Qatar. I'm the first person to ever fly from Qatar to Arizona. This is correct. I went to play golf after working the Asian Cup, but I feel like I didn't get enough sun. Or
how about sand? Did you get enough sand?
Yeah, I've definitely still at that point where you've done laundry, you've like emptied the bag, and you still find like sand in places, and it's like why is it still in the shoe?
Did you get any of the sandstorms over in Qatar?
No,
they get some brutal sandstorms.
No, didn't get the sandstorm, okay. But I did actually go out and dune bashing, like when you pay a local to get in the back of the Toyota Land Cruiser and you go up and down the sand dunes.
How cool was that?
Outstanding.
Wow.
Yes. What song do you think we played doing that?
Born to be Wild.
That could have come up there.
I don't know.
Doogie, do you know the song Darude Sandstorm? Do you know that?
Of course I do. I said that before I came on the mic.
As soon as I asked the question.
I'm looking over here saying it's definitely Sandstorm.
I couldn't remember if that banger was created before Doogie was born.
Who's that by?
Darude.
Okay.
Sandstorm.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we'll see. Well,
I might know it to hear it.
Like
it's like a popular club.
Maddie, yes, it was unmissable. Okay. Yeah, and you've heard it 1,000%. You've heard it at every arena.
So this is an arena banger.
Yes, between 2002 and probably 2009 in its peak, you would have heard this a lot.
See, I just didn't know it was called Sandstorm. Probably
that's it. Well, we'll see if you're fist pumping, and we'll see if it's if we've got the copyright to play it. This is OverDrive. You're listening on TSN 1050 and watching on TSN 2. Yes, there we go. Matt Cardadero and Doogie, they found a banger that you said you didn't know. Dave Feschuk.
Oh, we all know it.
Let the beat drop. If you missed the last segment, that came from me talking about being in Qatar for the Asia Cup and spending an off day with my great team driving around the desert in some locals' Toyota Land Cruiser, and it was amazing. If you have the chance to get over there and go dune bashing, I highly recommend it.
That sounds cool, man.
Well worth it. LeBron James, one of the biggest stars of the game last night, albeit not on the score sheet, but certainly in terms of attraction heading into the game. Although, did we see him in the third quarter at all? Didn't play the fourth, right?
I don't think he did. He might have. I started not paying too much attention by second half, to be honest with you.
It made me wonder how many people watched that and thought, how many more games will we see him play at all?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's a very good question.
Obviously one that he would have faced at a weekend like this and knew going in he was going to face. Here's how he answered that.
I was asked this question a couple of days ago. Will you kind of take the farewell tour, or will you kind of just Tim Duncan it? I'm 50-50. I'm going to be honest, because there's times where I feel like I guess I owe it to my fans that's been along this journey with me for 2 decades plus to be able to give them that moment, where it's every city and whatever the case may be, and, they give you your flowers or whatever the case may be, and that seems cool. But the other side of, I've never been that great with accepting, praise. It's a weird feeling for me. I never really talked about it much, but it's just a weird feeling for me.
That doesn't surprise me. Does that comment surprise you, that he doesn't like praise?
He doesn't accept it. He just gives it to himself. This is a guy who's got the chosen one tattooed on his back. This is a guy who calls himself King James. This is a guy who put a mock crown on his head being introduced last night. This is a guy who has declared that the moment that he became the greatest player of all time, just ask him, was the 2016 finals. But no, he doesn't like accepting praise. He just likes heaping it on himself.
I do think that there's a difference in expecting to be given praise and actually liking the experience of hearing it and being there to tolerate it. I think that's it. And maybe in his older age, he feels different. And he's said this a lot, right? Would he have done the decision now? No. Like he knows that he's grown and changed a lot. And I think that maybe that's it. You know what? When you're so great for so long, it's exhausting when people keep telling it.
He's a bad liar. He's a bad liar.
Is he going to get a farewell tour? Or is he going to, as he verbed it, Tim Duncan it?
He'll get whatever he wants. Right?
What do you think? What do you want, Dave Feschuk?
I mean, I appreciate both approaches. I think, I remember there's been those, Kareem had one. I mean, I don't even know who's had them more recently, but the farewell tours are fun. But you know what? Like, do the Toronto fans really want to give LeBron some gifts?
Oh, yeah.
And send him off? I don't know.
There's a lot of markets that do, man. Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
like the way he owned this town, the way we called it LeBronto.
Yeah.
The way he was the impediment to the success of the DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry Raptors. He got Dwayne Casey fired. He got DeMar DeRozan traded.
Okay, you're
essentially.
Right. So maybe here he's not getting any flowers.
I don't know.
There's a lot of places.
You tell me.
All right. So this is the market that's not voting for that. The Maple Leafs pulled off a matinee win, 4-2 over the St. Louis Blues. We'll talk about that more in the next hour. Mark Masters will join us next. This is OverDrive on TSN 1050 and TSN 2.